What's up again, guys? Brian here at 3TR, and I got another top 10 video for you. And this time I'll be sharing with you guys my top 10 favorite movie franchises of all time. Now, this video was requested to me by a good friend of mine, so I'd like to thank you right now for requesting this topic. I actually thought I had done something like this in the past, and I had. I did do a top 5 favorite trilogies, but this time is a bit more, let's say, expansive. So, without further ado, starting off with number 10. My number 10 is the Terminator franchise. Now, although we haven't really seen a Terminator movie in some time, there are rumors of them wanting to do a fifth one. And although I personally really did not like Salvations, I think that Terminators 1 and 2 really could stand on their own as just being probably the best, I don't know, couples movie you could think of all time. But the fact that they didn't want to delve into a third film and it didn't really be all that great, I thought it was okay. It just, the idea of the Terminator world and, you know, killer machines, time travel, it really opens up the doors for a lot of real interesting concepts in terms of storylines. It's just finding the right writer and director to fully execute it to its full potential like James Cameron can. Hopefully, if they do get a fifth one, maybe if James Cameron has some spare time, he'll give that director or maybe take over it himself, and we will have maybe a true third great Terminator film. But time will only tell. Number 9 on my list is Indiana Jones. Indiana Jones is kind of one of those franchises for Harrison Ford which allowed him to deviate from Star Wars. And in my opinion, he's really the only actor of the big three from the original trilogy to really break the Han Solo name and really become an actor. Now, it's not saying that Carrie Fisher or Mark Hamill hadn't done it, but you know, Mark Hamill's more of a voice actor, and he is the Joker than anyone else. But I think him delving into Indiana Jones really stands out as the definitive, straight-up, pure adventure franchise. Now, I know some people didn't like Crystal Skulls. I personally thought it was okay. I enjoyed it. But hopefully, if they do decide to do a fifth one, they'll go back to its roots. And I think that's what we all want. So that's why it's number 9. Number 8 on my list is Die Hard. Die Hard is the franchise that really made Bruce Willis' career and kind of made him one of the most iconic action stars of all time. In my opinion, the first Die Hard is quite possibly the most perfect action film of all time, past, present, or future, simply because it has the perfect blend of having a hero in a situation where the odds are heavily stacked against him. It has the great amount of really great humor thrown at the right personal times. It has just the right emotional connections with specific characters. It has a really great villain, and overall it has the perfect type of action to actually bring in that suspense of whether or not our hero is going to make it or not. And although that's kind of been up and down as the franchise has gone forward with 2, 3, Live Free or Die Hard, and most recently A Good Day to Die Hard, which really was a terrible film in my opinion. But hopefully if they do decide to do a 6th one, which they already have, just give us more of what we liked from what made Die Hard great. That's all we asked for, and I still think it has maybe one great adventure story for John McClane, and that's why it's number 8. Number 7 on my list is a bit of a tie. I really am not sure which one to pick, so I'm going to put them together, and that is Star Wars and Star Trek. To keep it simple, the reason that I put them at even with each other is I believe that Star Wars has a far more interesting universe. It really does, especially with the EU. But Star Trek in recent years, and over its history, has been able to really execute it better. Now, I'm not saying that Star Wars prequels are bad, and as some of you know, Episode 3 is my favorite of all time. It just... most people focus on just the movies, and I think that's really unfair, because the EU is so massive, and it's like... The movies is like maybe a small fraction of what Star Wars is. However, with Star Trek, with them being able to really revamp it for a current audience, I think that it simply does that better. And if I can say it, I've actually enjoyed the 2 J.J. Abrams films, Star Trek and Star Trek Into Darkness, a lot more than I did all 6 of the Star Wars films. And maybe that will continue with the 3rd installment, hopefully if we get that soon, but only time will tell. Number 6 on my list is the James Bond franchise. Now, as we do know, I think James Bond is currently the second most successful franchise. I think having, 23 films right now, about to hit 24. We'll get Daniel Craig till 25. And it's really that one idea of having that one guy that every guy wants to be and every girl wants to be with, and that hint of danger, and really seeing James Bond actually evolve with the time. So, you have the, I guess you could say, post-Cold War James Bond, you have the Cold War James Bond, and you have the after-Cold War James Bond, now we have this James Bond. It's a really interesting idea that we're going to continue to see James Bond evolve as a character and have different interpretations of what it means to be James Bond, and I really think you can't go wrong with James Bond. He is the ultimate spy. Number 5 on my list is Toy Story. Toy Story is unquestionably my favorite Disney franchise of all time, simply because it is the only franchise I've actually been able to see at all 3 periods of my life. And it really goes over the very fundamentals of the changes of life and really how you deal with it. And I really do not think any franchise in Disney's arsenal really compares. And Pixar is a great studio. I am going to see Monsters Universe when it does come out, and hopefully I'll be able to give a good review on that. But enough talking about that. Let's get on to number 4. Number 4 is Lord of the Rings. Many have considered Lord of the Rings to be really the Bible of all fantasy storylines, and I am inclined to agree. It has everything. It has magic, it's got wizards, it's got hobbits, it's got elves, it's got knights, it's got dragons, it's got monsters. I mean, what more could you ask for? And with the original Lord of the Rings trilogy, I think they hit it out of the park, and that's one of the greatest trilogies of all time. I would even say more superior than even the Star Wars original trilogies. And with what they want to do with The Hobbit, although I'm not inclined to agree with them wanting to really spread it into 3 films, if they had stuck with 2, I would have been happy with it. I'm starting to get the feeling that they're milking the franchise. But maybe this will work against us, and maybe Peter Jackson will show us that maybe doing 3 films is a better idea than just 2, but only time will tell. Number 3 on my list is X-Men. X-Men is quite possibly my favorite Marvel franchise of all time. I am definitely much more of a fan of Fox's Marvel than I am of Disney's Marvel. I'm sorry if you can hear the wind blowing in the background. But I just think it gets it right most. And although they do tend to focus more on Wolverine, I think that's really how most storylines, some of the... Damn, that was a big one. I think most of the big popularity swathering around Wolverine is kind of mirroring exactly how the fan base reacts with the whole X-Men franchise. And with them wanting to go into Days of Futures Past, I'm really excited about that. And I'm more excited about that film than I could ever be for a Justice League movie or even a second Avengers movie, even though I'm not really looking forward to that movie in general, but that's just me. Number 2 on my list is Batman. Batman, do I really need to talk about Batman? I've been talking about Batman since the channel's beginning. You know how much I love Batman. The Christopher Nolan films is my favorite trilogy of all time. It's probably going to stay like that for many years to come. Batman is unquestionably the most interesting character out of the DC franchise, and I would even say the most interesting comic book character. I mean, although his backstory is rather tragic, it's really how he reacts to all the different situations, whether in different storylines, that really makes him stand apart from someone like, say, Superman or Wonder Woman or Iron Man or Thor. And no one really has more depth than Batman. Enough said. And number 1, my favorite franchise in hundreds of movies is Harry Potter. 8 films, been reading the books. In fact, Harry Potter was really the one book franchise I would say I actively read beginning to end. The movies are really good interpretations of those books, although they do take some stuff out. But I would say if any franchise has ever gotten it right in terms of trying to tell the story of the books, I think that those movies have done it better than anyone else, with Lord of the Rings being a good second. And it's really the only one that I'm sure many of us, we all grew up with. We didn't just grow up with the characters, we grew up with the actors. And I think that's one of those things that you can't really explain how amazing Harry Potter was unless you were actually there to experience it from the beginning to the end. And that's something I don't think any franchise I will ever encounter over my life will be able to match. And that's why it's my number 1, and that is my list. If you like my list, please like, comment down below, and please subscribe to track me in my future videos, and tell me, what are some of you guys' favorite movie franchises? Because I'd really like to know, and tell me why. And like always, I'd like to thank you guys for watching, and I will see you next time.